Okay guys, today we're going to be talking about doing a basic sit-down interview, and the next time we're going to do a man on the street interview style, okay? So these are the two standard interview types. We've got sit down, and then we've got man on the street, which is just going to be kind of that standing, kind of questioning one, right? Typically with a sit-down interview, you're going to have your person that you're interviewing look just barely off camera, and we're going to talk about how to kind of orient them so that you have a good perspective and something that looks aesthetically pleasing. And then we're going to be talking about some lighting as well. What are you guys noticing right now about the image? Nailed it. Yeah. Yeah, so our background is slightly blurred, right? And we're actually, I think, at one of the lowest apertures that we can on that lens. So f2.8, whenever you see an F, you're going to know that that's your aperture. The lower that number, the more blurry that background's going to be. Now, one thing that's working against us here is that this is a wide-angle lens. So the wider the lens, the less blurry the background's going to be. So if we take that, both of those things together, the more telephoto a lens is, so the more zoomed in it is, the more we can blur that background, okay? So basically the higher the focal length, or the, so let's say, what are we going to be using? We're going to be using a 35. So if we go from 24 millimeter to 35 millimeter, then we can blur that background more. If we can go to a lower f-stop number, which we can on the 35 millimeter, we can also get it to blur more. So the lower the f-stop number and the higher the focal length, the more blurry that background's going to be. The more wide angle our lens is and the higher that aperture, the more in focus our background's going to be. And there's a purpose to doing it both ways. So let's take a look real quick. I typically will not shoot an interview on a wide-angle lens unless I'm in a really tight location, which means that we have a couple of different options. We have a zoom lens right here. Our aperture is a consistent f4, so that's not horrible, but that's still higher than 2.8, right? So if we're at f4, even on this guy, then at 24 millimeters, so if we match the focal length, the background will be less blurry with this lens. But we can zoom in, right? That's where this lens is nice. So if we zoomed into like 75 millimeters, even at f4, which is higher than that, at 2.8, it will still be a little bit more blurry. But what we're going to do is we're going to up our focal length. So we're going to go to a 35 millimeter. So it's going to get tighter, you'll notice when I put this lens on. And then we're also going to go down to f1.8. So that's going to give us a higher focal length and a lower aperture, which is going to make it more blurry. All right, so right now we are on our 35 millimeter lens. So we can see that we're zoomed in more, right? Everybody with me on that? We're not as wide. I'm going to back it up just a little bit, and then I'm also going to go down on our aperture. So you're going to see the f2.8 as I spin this dial. You're going to see that go down to f1.8. What did you guys notice as we went down? Yes, he got brighter. He got even whiter. We didn't think it was possible. And the background also got more blurry, right? So now there's a couple of things that we can do to compensate for that. You can see ISO right down below Ben's face there. It says ISO 500. What we're going to do is click our ISO button. Okay, so we can go down on our ISO, and then that's going to bring our exposure down to something that's a little bit better. Right now his face isn't quite as bright. Now, this is, would you say that this is better than the first lens, the 24 millimeter 2.8? Everybody with me on that? Yeah. Okay, great. Now, again, it depends on the situation that you're in, right? If you're in a really tight office space, you might have to use a 24 millimeter lens. You may not have the space to be able to place a tighter, more zoomed in lens on your subject. Now, we have a decent separation here between Ben and our background because he's quite a bit brighter than the background. What else can we do to separate him even more from the background, to make him pop a little bit more?
Make the background dark.
Hair light, right? Somebody said add a light. So let's add a light right here. This needs to be here. Okay, so we're going to dim that light just a little bit. So now it's looking quite a bit better, right? We have a hair light. I'm going to turn that off for you one more time. So right now that would be a good aesthetic if we're doing maybe like a more dramatic interview. But when we add that hair light, it adds that additional layer of separation. Everybody with me on that? So now we see a nice light here on the shoulder, and we see it on the top of his head, which again is separating him even more from the background. So not only do we have a nice blurry background, but we also have a hair light here. So basically what we have is our key light over on this side, which is our brightest light, right? The light that's illuminating his face. And then we have a hair light. The only other light that we would add would be a fill light on this side, because we see some shadows on this side of his face. So we could add a fill light that's quite a bit dimmer if we wanted to, but I'd actually be pretty happy with this. So what I'm going to have you do, Ben, is rotate your chair a little bit more towards me. A little bit more. Great. And then just look right at me here. What do you guys think? Not bad, right? Now, one other thing that I think is important to touch on, it's a little bit more advanced, but you guys can handle it, would be placing your light on the upstage side. So that means that we would take this key light and we'd move it to the left side of the person doing the interview. Right now the light is hitting him from the same side that the camera is seeing most of his face. So that's downstage. If we move it upstage, we get something that looks a little more like this. So now we have the shadow downstage, which is this side of our image, and we have our key light hitting him right here on the upstage side. So this would be a pretty standard setup for filming an interview, and this would be pretty aesthetic, right? So basically you would want to make sure that your
It wasn't me this time.
Basically, you'd want to make sure that the person asking the questions is sitting just off to the side of the camera. In this case, Ben's looking directly at me here. I'll be asking you some questions. If you could restate the question somehow in your answer. So if I ask you, what is your favorite class at Mountain View High School? You don't just respond, science class. Because then when we go to edit that together,
That'd be a lie.
There's no context, right? Plus it'd be a lie, so double whammy. What we want is for him to restate the question somehow in his answer to lend context to the audience. That way when we edit it together, when we don't hear me ask the question, we will actually be able to understand what Ben is saying. So if I say, what is your favorite subject in school? You could say, my favorite subject in Mountain View High School is science class, right? That way when we edit that together, we have context. Does that kind of make sense? So that's some instruction that you can give to your person that you're interviewing, right? Make sure that you have headphones with you. We always want to plug those into the camera that's recording our audio. You can see that we have a microphone on top, and then I have the microphone right here. If we were interviewing Ben, though, obviously we'd take this microphone and we'd clip it onto Ben. There's also these style of microphones. So this one that I'm wearing is only usable on the Sony. Actually, I think you can feed it in from the side. You can, but it's more tailored to the Sonys. But these are also good ones that you can use. The one that has the little LCD screen on it, that's going to be the one that connects to your camera, because you'll be able to see the battery life of both the transmitter and the receiver. And you'll also be able to see the audio level there. And then you would clip this one, if this is what we were using, onto Ben's shirt. We could also use what we call a lavalier microphone, and wire the lavalier up his shirt and then clip it onto his collar. And then this is one more style that we have. These are our Hollyland microphones. This is when you're interviewing two people. So if we had two people sitting next to each other, this guy would go onto your camera and you'd feed it in through a wire. And then you would have two audio transmitters. And these guys have little magnets on the back. You can just pop it right onto a shirt. These are pretty slick. Make sure that when you're done filming with a camera that you plug it back in, either plug the battery back into a charger or plug the actual camera in through the USB-C port back there in the back room, and also the microphones. These microphones are awesome, but the batteries have to be charged, right? We can't just replace like a AA battery. These are internal batteries. Yeah, that would be nice. And I'm pretty sure that's how almost all of our microphones are that we have in class. So just make sure that you plug it back into the USB-C, and so that way it's charged up and ready to go for the next time. One more thing is a bonus for you guys. I'm going to quickly run over why we would place him where we place him and face him in accordance to what our background looks like. So right now, we have what are called converging lines. If you've ever taken an art class, you know that that is basically the perspective of space squishing down in the background. So it kind of looks like this. If this were to go way, way back, like 100 yards, you'd basically, it would look kind of like this, right? Where the lines would converge in to the horizon. I like to place the subject so that the converging lines lead the eye to the subject. So it's bigger here in the space that's right here to the left of him, but then it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and converge into him. It's going to draw the eye to our subject. So that's why we've placed him where we did. If we placed him on the other side, if we placed him on the other side, you can see that there's really no converging lines anywhere. We have that kind of flat background. Now that would also work in a pinch, but this is just, again, it's like doctrine of Mr. Hall. Looks a little bit better to my eye. One other thing that we can do is we can take a background light, if we have it, and we can pop a background light behind him to help break up that background a little bit. So now we've got a different color behind him. We can change it to blue, we can go to white, and then we can go to red. Let's even just go to the white. That's not bad. So let me take that off for you. Okay? So it's just whatever light is coming from our key light, but then we place this on there, and you can see it's a little more visually interesting, right? Any questions on basic interview setup, guys? We've gone over how to set up the camera, we've gone over audio, and we've also gone over lens choice. So remember, we want to go more telephoto, so more zoomed in on our lens. We want to go lower aperture when we can. We're going to have a key light, a fill light possibly, but then we're going to have a hair light as well. So we'll have at least 2 lights, but the standard setup is 3 lights. This would be our 4th light, which is our background light. Any questions, though, on that? Okay. I know that's a lot. This has all been recorded. It's going to go up on Canvas for you guys to be able to watch if you need a refresher on kind of how we set stuff up. I'm going to be cutting back and forth between the different camera views so that you can see it illustrated as I'm talking. But otherwise, I'm here. You're going to have a lot of other people in class that can also help you create aesthetic interviews. And next time we'll go over standing interviews or man on the street interviews.